The Sodder children. Mystery, gone in smoke or stolen away. Christmas Eve, 1945. Fayetteville, West Virginia. While the rest of the world was waking up from the nightmare of World War II to celebrate peace, a small town was about to step into a mystery that would defy logic, haunt a family for generations, and remain entirely unsolved to this very day. George and Jenny Sodder had a bustling household. George, a proud Italian immigrant, had built a successful trucking business, and their home was filled with love, warmth, and children. But on this snowy night, the joy of the holidays turned into a waking nightmare. A sudden fire engulfed their two-story home. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children managed to escape into the freezing night air. But 5 of the Sodder children, Maurice, Martha, Louise, Jenny, and Betty, were trapped upstairs. Or were they? Because when the smoke cleared and the ashes were sifted, not a single bone was found. No remains, no trace, just a pile of rubble and a family left asking an impossible question. Were those children ever actually in that house to begin with? Welcome back. Today we are diving deep into one of the most chilling, bizarre, and confounding unsolved mysteries in American history: the disappearance of the Sodder children. To understand how deep this rabbit hole goes, we have to go back to the sequence of events on December 24th, 1945. It was late. Around 1 a.m., Jenny Sodder was jolted awake by a loud bang coming from the roof. It sounded like a heavy object bouncing and hitting the shingles. Brushing it off as the wind or a settling house, she rolled over and went back to sleep. Half an hour later, at 1:30 a.m., she woke up again. This time, it was the smell of smoke. Jenny jumped out of bed and discovered that George's office on the ground floor was ablaze, specifically around the telephone fuse box and fuse lines. The fire was spreading rapidly. Panic set in. Jenny woke George up, and together they scrambled to get their children out. 4 of their kids, John, Marion, George Jr., and Sylvia, were sleeping on the ground floor or managed to escape with their parents. George and Jenny screamed for the 5 children sleeping in the attic bedrooms upstairs, but the interior staircase was already engulfed in a wall of towering flames. Desperate, George ran outside to grab his ladder to reach the second-story windows. But here is where the first bizarre red flag enters the story. The ladder was gone. Normally, it leaned against the side of the house. That night, it had been moved and was lying flat at the bottom of a nearby embankment. Panicked, George tried to drive his 2 coal trucks closer to the house so he could climb onto the roof. Neither truck would start. Both trucks, which had been running perfectly fine earlier that day, mysteriously refused to turn over, despite George having plenty of fuel and a working engine. With no ladder and no trucks, George tried to run back inside, but the heat was too intense. He badly injured his arms in the attempt. All he could do was stand helplessly in the freezing snow and watch his home burn to the ground. The fire department was called, but because it was Christmas Eve and many operators were away or the local lines were jammed, help didn't arrive until hours later. By then, the house was completely gone. The Sodders assumed their 5 children had perished in the inferno. But the horror was only just beginning. When the fire burned out, the local fire chief and later state authorities conducted a search of the basement and the ashes. Now let's look at the science of fire. A typical residential fire burns at high temperatures, often between 1,100 to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Human bones, even children's bones, do not completely vanish in a standard house fire. Teeth, bone fragments, and skull pieces always survive. Forensic anthropologists will tell you that even crematoriums leave behind pounds of bone fragments. Yet when the authorities searched the Sodder basement and the surrounding rubble, they found absolutely nothing. No bones, no teeth, no belt buckles, buttons, or metal zippers from their pajamas. Nothing. The fire chief, desperate to close the case, quickly declared that the fire had been hot enough to completely cremate the bodies into total nothingness, but the family wasn't buying it. George Sodder, who knew a thing or two about construction and materials, pointed out that household items like kitchen appliances, tin cans, and glass jars had survived the fire intact. If fragile glass could survive, how could 5 human bodies vanish without a trace? Compounding the mystery, strange stories began to surface around town almost immediately. A telephone repairman checked the wires leading to the Sodder house and discovered they hadn't burned through from the fire. They had been cleanly cut. Someone had deliberately sabotaged their communications. A local bus driver reported seeing a group of people watching the fire from a dark hillside, whispering and laughing as the home burned. A nearby hotel owner claimed that a group of people matching the description of Jenny and the missing kids had checked into his hotel the morning after the fire. He stated they were accompanied by two men with Italian accents who acted hostile when he tried to talk to them. Was it possible that the children were never in the house at all? As the months rolled on, the official investigation stalled. Police officially ruled the fire an electrical accident caused by faulty wiring. But the Sodder family launched their own investigation, and what they uncovered pointed away from a tragic accident and straight towards something far more sinister. To understand why someone might target the Sodder family, you have to look at George Sodder's past. George was fiercely vocal against the Italian fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. Back in his hometown in Italy, and even within the local Italian-American community in West Virginia, George hadn't been shy about sharing his hatred for Mussolini's regime. Just months before the fire, a mysterious insurance salesman had visited George's business, trying to sell him a policy. When George refused, the man grew angry and threatened him, saying, "Your damn house is going up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed. You are going to pay for your dirty remarks about Mussolini." George had brushed it off at the time as a frustrated salesman blowing off steam. But after the fire, that warning took on a terrifying new meaning. Convinced that his children were kidnapped before the house was set ablaze, George and Jenny hired private investigators. They put up massive billboards along Route 60 featuring pictures of the 5 missing children, offering a staggering cash reward for information. And then years later, the ultimate piece of haunting evidence arrived in the mail. 23 years passed. The year was 1968. George and Jenny had never given up hope. They kept the billboards up, keeping the memory of their children alive. Then in August 1968, Jenny Sodder received a piece of mail in her mailbox. It was a postcard. There was a postmark from Central City, Kentucky, but no return address. When Jenny turned it over, her breath caught in her throat. Handwritten on the back was a short, chilling message. "Louis Sodder, I love brother, ill. Louis was one of the missing boys. In 1945, he had been just 9 years old. If he was still alive in 1968, he would have been in his early 30s. Panic-stricken and desperate, George and Jenny immediately hired a private investigator and sent him to Central City, Kentucky, to track down the sender. The investigator went and promptly vanished. He never reported back to the family, and the trail went stone cold. Despite this, the family stared at the photo of a young man that bore a striking resemblance to their missing son, Louis, as an adult. A photo sent anonymously years earlier that they kept framed in their home. They were convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt their children had been taken, trafficked, or hidden away in Italy or elsewhere by political enemies, and someone was alive out there, taunting them. George Sodder passed away in 1969, broken-hearted, still staring down the road waiting for his kids to walk home. Jenny passed away in 1989, wearing black every single day of her life in mourning. Today, the Sodder children mystery remains one of the most chilling open loops in American true crime history. What really happened on that snowy Christmas Eve in 1945? Did a fast-moving, intensely hot fire truly reduce 5 human beings to absolute nothingness without leaving a single speck of bone? Or was it an abduction? Did someone cut the phone lines, steal the ladder, disable the trucks, and kidnap the children under the cover of a staged inferno? Was the postcard a cruel hoax by a sick prankster? Or was it a desperate cry for help from across the decades? The last surviving member of the Sodder family, Sylvia, who was just 2 years old at the time of the fire, spent her entire life fighting to keep the story alive, refusing to let her siblings be forgotten. The truth may have burned away in the ashes of that West Virginia home, but the smoke still lingers. What do you think happened to the Sodder children? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's darkest mysteries. Stay safe and I'll see you in the next video.